Well, hey there. Welcome to our next round of Thrive interviews. Today I have Terry Prisk with us, the pastor of Venture Church in Heartland, Michigan. Thank you for joining us, Terry. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Jason. Good to see your fuzzy little quarantined face.
It is fuzzy. I'll tell you, I need a haircut and to get rid of the fuzz. I'll tell you, it's bad. Well, hey, thanks for joining us. I'm just going to ask you some questions. We're just going to kind of talk back and forth like we're sitting over at a Coney Island or a coffee shop. But could you just tell us
how about Chick-fil-A?
Okay, I will do that. I will do that, my friend. I will definitely do that. I think we've only eaten at Chick-fil-A once. So
yeah, but I mean, it's kind of like your mistress, though, Chick-fil-A.
It's definitely a great love of my life. It definitely is. It's 54.5 miles from my house to the closest Chick-fil-A, which is Grand Rapids. So 74 in the closest one to Lansing. So I love them. I love them. Okay, so Terry, tell us a little bit about your story, who you are, your family. And I'm just curious, even some of our Thrivers, I don't think they know what you did before you started Venture. So we'd just love to hear a little bit of your story.
Well, I have a great wife, Jeanette, and she's on our team at Venture Church. And as people know, there's what I would consider a pretty healthy relationship between Thrive Church and Venture Church.
Yeah.
And my wife is an integral part of what we do here. And so she's my soulmate, but she's a partner in ministry. It makes it interesting sometimes when two people are in high-level positions in a church, but I know you've seen the value that she brings.
Oh, yeah.
We have 4 children, 3 boys and a girl, and we're really blessed because all of our children live locally, and we get together regularly, except a little bit during pandemic times, or at one time I even said pandemic, and so I guess it was a Freudian or something. But what's really neat is, and I'll put a little triangle here. You have Venture Church, you have Thrive Church, and then you have Grumlaw Church, which, as you know, Jason, you've spoken there, and Jeanette's and one of our sons is the pastor there. And so our family, our 4 children and their mates, all of them attend church at either Venture or Grumlaw, and serve at Venture or Grumlaw. And so therefore, we feel very fortunate, very blessed, and highly encouraged. And then we have grandchildren. I believe it's 8 grandchildren. Well, technically 7, and then 1 in the process of being adopted. And so life is incredible. Before this whole experience happened with Venture Church, I was literally traveling the country, speaking, doing consulting, writing some books, putting out resources for people, and not to drop like, oh, here's something I've done, but I am grateful that I was part of an incredible project, the Life Application Bible, which a lot of people have heard about. I mean, it's the #1 selling Bible in the world. Well, there's also the Life Application Bible for students, and I was privileged to work on that project also. So before I was doing the pastor thing, I was traveling the country speaking for youth conferences. And so, you and I have a similar heartbeat there, and doing some writing, then definitely doing some consulting. But then just because Jeanette taking care of 4 kids in the house while dad's off traveling some midweek, almost every weekend, it was time to focus a little bit on home. Jeanette never complained, but she said, hey, I need a little bit of help with the boys. And at the same time, I was feeling a nudge to start a different kind of church. And what I mean by that is a church where you didn't have to apologize. And Jason, for your people, this is going to sound so I mean, our DNAs are so much alike. I just wanted whatever was going to be discussed on a Sunday morning, whether it was sex, whether it was finances, whether it was discipleship, and whether a person knew Jesus or didn't know Jesus, they could come to a place and still be thinking about that on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. So it had to be highly application. It had to be highly practical. And just like you, I'm not into the theory. I'm not into the intellectualism. I like the base of that. But if that doesn't move into transformational living, then why are we talking about it? So I don't know. You asked a bunch of questions there, and I, boom, dumped on you there, Pete.
Well, I don't know if you remember this, but I heard you speak, oh man, I must have been 19, 20, and then I took a class at William Tyndale College. It was a creative communication class for a youth ministry major, and you came in and did like a 6-week run at that.
Yeah.
And that's where we first got to know each other. And I actually have it on my wall. I'm going to grab it.
Oh, I can't wait to see this.
I actually still have William Tyndale College Creative Communication. This is the first message I ever typed out on actual paper, April 10th, 1995. And you gave me an A on this. I remember you making such a giant deal in class. You're like, I never give A's. So I think this is my only college A.
Well, let me tell you something, Jason. You deserved it, and you have practically applied that, because I'm willing to give honor where honor is due, and I'm all the time, because at my heart, I'm a coach kind of guy. I want to encourage people, but you had to work at, and you had to go above and beyond to get an A. Because, it's interesting, even in life, I find that people want to be uplifted or recognized for what they've been hired to do. And I have no problem with that. I mean, the Bible says that we need to be encouragers, but if something is going to be expounded on or highlighted at a higher level, that's because a person has taken it to another level, and in that class you did that. But let me flip this around. What do you remember about that class?
Okay, here's the first thing I remember. The guy sitting next to me, I'm not going to use his name because I still talk to him every once in a while.
I think I know what you're going to talk
on Facebook. He was not as happy with the class than I was, because you basically challenged him to just kind of destroy his whole thought process and make communication as absolutely clear and focused as possible. And I can still remember sitting and listening to him rant and rave about this isn't going to work and this is too simple. And here I am 25, whatever that is, years later. And I'm like, no, people want simple. They want clear, they want focused. And that's what you drilled into us. And so that's what I remember. I remember other people in the class like sweating, having to get up and do this message. And I was like, can I do theirs? Like, I loved it. It was the only time in college that I did well. So thank you. And you pushed hard. It wasn't like you made it easy, but it's just, me, it's just my passion. Like, I absolutely love it. And so that was fun. I just love that, like, our friendship. I mean, you started as someone who I looked up to, as a communicator that I wanted to be like. You became a teacher, you became a mentor. I can remember, calling you on the telephone, when we actually did that before email and text. And I just said, hey, I remember listening to the old John Maxwell Enjoy Life Club tapes. And he talked about how, he always said, go meet with the people that you want to be where they're at, and take a yellow legal pad. And I'll never forget, I think your office was in Highland. It was like an old white building or something, a white house.
It wasn't the White House, but it had some white trim, but it was a blue house. But yes, that is, and it was in Highland. So I'm glad you have better recall of your messages rather than what a house looks like.
I'm glad I didn't go into, forensic or any law enforcement. But I can remember that first day pulling up, and I just gotten off the phone with my wife. I'm like, I'm going to meet with Terry Prisk, and I had my yellow legal pad ready, and I walked in. I remember still walking in your office. The office before your office was just filled with books, and I was like, that's just what I want to have an office someday with all these books. Then I went into your desk, and I still remember this. You have very, very creative, not creative, but I mean, your handwriting is very unique, right? I mean, it's very neat. It's bright. You know, my handwriting is just like. And so on your desk on the front, you had like some pad of paper, and I didn't mean to look, but you had to go to the restroom or something before we met. And so I was snooping around a little bit, and on one corner there was like all these name tags hanging from the events you spoke at, DCLA, and you know, stuff like that. And I remember like Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and under each one you had like, you know, just bullet points of this is what you're going to accomplish. These are the things you're praying for today. And even, I mean, that was like 95, 96. I can still remember that, because I used that forever. I took that and I'm like, okay, this is how I need to like break down my week and make sure that I'm accomplishing stuff. So, what a blast. Here we are all of these years later. Like I love that. And I love that we've been able to continue. Like you've gone from, okay, obviously I still look up to you, but looked up to you from afar. You became a teacher, you became a mentor, you started meeting with me, you know, I started showing up at your speaking events because, you know, that's just what I wanted to do. And then you pitched me this idea, hey, I'm starting this church. And so I got to be a part of that for a while. And then, you know, fast forward all these years, I remember where I was sitting in Mount Pleasant on a phone, and you said, when are you going to finally plant a church? Like, has God put that on your heart? And then we met at Leo's Coney Island. And I remember you looking across the table and you're like, it's just undeniable. God's got a plan for you to start a church. And then you went to town with it. I mean, you connected me with Stadia, you connected me with Kensington and Heritage. And I mean, I tell Thrive all the time, like Thrive Church does not exist without your heart and passion for church planning, for churches. And so, I mean, all these years later, hopefully I've adequately said thank you enough over the years, but I just have loved, you know, our friendship, mentorship, relationship, you know, over the years. So let me turn corners for a second. You now have led Venture for how many years?
We'll be approaching 20 years.
Wow. So as you look back,
yeah.
Go ahead.
You know, and the insanity of that is that guys really didn't start when I didn't look at it ever this way, but a lot of times when guys start churches, they're in their 20s and 30s. How many guys start churches when they're in their mid to late 40s? And I've said this so many times. You know, in a lot of ways, I'm a visionary person, but in some areas, I think I'm really slow in learning things. And I say, I wish I would have known this when I was 40 or late 30s, but I wouldn't have, because I hadn't been through the experience. I mean, when we went to start a church, in my mid to late 40s, now looking back upon it, it was insane. And I mean, we literally had pastors preaching against us. And by the way, I won't mention any pastors. I won't mention, because I buried that. That's another story. But I literally heard this week about someone who is at our church because another church, the leader of that church, was preaching against this new church. And this guy just said, that's it. If you're that vehement about it, there must be something going on over there. And this whole family has absolutely been transformed by Jesus. But what, you know, I didn't know exactly what you were going to ask, because we're making this extemporaneous. But I look back, and even with just some things you said, being a visionary, I plot things out. And yes, I plan days like you said, but there's another part of who I am. We didn't plan some of the things that we did. We just walked in the Spirit. And that's what I'm encouraging people to do today, where there's one of the lessons I've learned of late is this, and it really comes from Blackaby's book, knowing God's will. Don't go where you want something to happen. Go where the Spirit of God is already moving. And you know what that takes, though, when we do that? It takes humility, because if we do that, maybe we don't get the credit. And I'll tell you one thing you mentioned to me, Terry, where are you at in, the season of life you're in right now? Do you know where I'm at right now? I couldn't have said this a few years ago. I could have not said this 15 years ago, because anybody who does what you do and I do, there's ego in it. There's ego in it.
Yeah.
And ego can be healthy, ego can be bad. Cockiness versus confidence in the Spirit. But I don't care if I get credit for something, as long as whatever it is that God maybe has laid on my heart just gets done.
Yeah.
Who in rip cares?
Right. Exactly.
And so there's ideas that you put out, but I'm saying this for anybody who is listening right now. So many times we want to say, well, I'm the one that came up with that idea, or that started in this office. And I'm just saying to people, think less of yourself, think more of God, and empower other people to become everything they can become. And if because of a conversation, an idea, they go and run with something and you're never mentioned again, who gives two rips?
Right, exactly. I love that. Because now at this point, like, how many churches has Venture helped start?
I mean, if you want to talk specifically, obviously the Green Room in Ann Arbor, Grumlaw, and then there's it's tough to answer that question because we've been part of things, and initiative has been taken. Let's just say that we have our finger in a lot of places, literally around the world.
Yeah.
And maybe we won't be the one to go where it's said that it was Venture that did it, but we've had a piece in that. I mean, look at the initiatives that we're doing right now over in Kenya, Africa. What I love about, in fact, I just noticed this, I'm wearing it, Hope Water International. What I love, I wish, Jason, that I would have known this concept about Hope Water International when I started the church, because it is by far unequivocally the best life group I've ever been in, because you challenge each other mentally, socially, physically, and spiritually. And when you get to know, when you train with people a half a year, I mean, you learn everything about them, even when they go to the restroom. And I mean, and it's not crude or anything, but when we run and we work out to sink wells in Kenya, Africa with the Pokot people, and wherever we put in a well, we put in a church. So they not only get the water they need to live physically, they hear about the living water. As a result of hearing about the living water, a church is put up, and we're part of that because of the Timothy Initiative. And so there's a ripple effect of what we're doing. And the reason I love teaming with you, the reason I love teaming with Grumlaw and other like-minded churches is it's all about how are we multiplying. But here's something I'm adding where I'm at right now. And you know this book, The Hero Maker. Who do you want to be the hero? And guess what? When I want to be the hero, if you want to be the hero, it limits the multiplication empowerment process. But if we go, I just want to make someone else realize their giftedness, enlighten them, and then empower them to do what they never thought they could do. That's when we see exponential results. And one of the greatest things that's happening during this pandemic, in my opinion right now, and the way I've tried to lead here at Venture is this. It's like we need to do this, or this other church is doing this. And I go, wait a minute. We're not going to react. We're going to respond.
Yep.
And it's not my job as the church to do it. I want to empower you to be the hands and feet. Now, we're doing blood drives right now. Somebody can't do that in their living room, okay? So we're opening up our lobby, and we're doing blood drives. But if anybody comes with an idea right now with what we're dealing with, I go, well, God gave you that idea. How can you link with a ministry that we're aware of or we're not aware of, and empowering them to do it? Because your and my job is not to do the work of ministry.
Right.
It is to equip people, and in equipping, we empower. And guess what happens then, Jason? You and I are seen less, and that's a good thing, because he increases, we decrease, and people see more of Jesus. John 3:30.
John 3:30. Love it. I love that. So we're in a crazy pandemic season right now. What's one thing that you've learned just about this season, your walk with God? What's one thing that's just kind of been on your heart during this time?
Well, I'm going to be honest. This isn't our kingdom.
Ooh, that's good.
When I hear people relying on, depending on what I would call the small g, the government, rather than the big G, who is an awesome, incredible God.
Yep.
And I'm not saying that we don't have a responsibility to pray for our leaders,
yep,
but there also comes a point where, and I'm not saying at all that this is the beginning of the tribulation. Don't want to freak people out, but I will tell you this. What we've just gone through is absolutely an appetizer for what will happen in the last days when you see people being so confused in a spirit of fear. And you can see how at some point in the future where people will be following a leader because they're going to think that leader has all the answers, when it is Jesus who only has the answers. And so what have I learned when people are wigging out? I go, do you realize that sometime in the future there will be no United States of America? Whose kingdom are you living for? Your citizenship is small c in the United States. Your big C with Christ is in the kingdom of God. And what are you doing to bring more people into the kingdom? So here's another answer to what you asked. What have I learned? I believe as a church, we will need to simplify in order to expand to be what the church should be. Yep. We will need to be giving more money away to be with people who are crippled emotionally, people who are crippled physically. I personally think that what we've gone through in this 6 weeks is nothing in comparison to what is going to happen for months and years because of the residual effect and ripple effect of what has happened, what we've gone through. We are going to be living through. And so who do you look to? We've got to look to Jesus. Who do we look to? We got to rely on him. Who do we look to? Let's just be the hands and feet of Jesus. So for followers of Jesus, it's not going to be, how can I get back to living the way I live? No, how can I get to the point of living the way Jesus wants me to live, which means I won't be living the way I've been living because it's a whole new world.
Yep.
I mean, I think, I don't know, you may have gotten more there than you wanted to hear.
No, that's great. I love it. Okay, let me ask you two more questions. We're going into the series at Thrive called Lean In, leaning into God during uncertain times, during times of crisis. And what I found is sometimes during these seasons of life, we kind of start scratching our head and we're going, God, where are you? You seem distant. And it's actually us who kind of pulled away. It's us who let go of our spiritual practices. It's us who have got our eyes off the focus of the big kingdom. So what have you learned, or what advice or thoughts could you give, on those seasons where God has felt distant, those seasons, of the dark nights, those seasons of the muck and mire? Like, what have you learned or worse, a challenge or an encouragement that you could give the people who are going through that season right now?
There is something that God wants me to learn. God wants me to hear. God wants me to see, that for whatever reason I haven't seen it, I haven't learned it, I haven't heard it, I haven't lived it, and he's refining me. So rather than looking at those periods as dark, and they're not easy, it's that sandpaper approach that comes out of the book of Hebrews, that loves us so much that he refines us.
Absolutely.
And I think that we have such a Pollyanna, Disneyland, Disney World approach to Christianity, apple pie, Chevrolets, and life is so good. I don't think that people who truly are following Jesus, if they always go, life is great, life is good, almost give the impression that it couldn't be better than this, then I would say that they're in a state of comfortableness, and that is actually a very unsafe position to be in spiritually, because they're not trusting the Lord. And I don't want to get big and heavy here, but they're almost living in a carnal state, because, Jason, you know this. I know this. I didn't always want to admit it. But this world, in a lot of ways, sucks.
Yep.
It hurts.
Yep.
You can be at the highest of highs and at the same moment be dealing with, really tough situations. Right now, Jason, I don't even know how to say this, but we have people that can't even mourn the death of someone because the funeral has been put off.
Right.
I've got funerals booked into June and beyond. And life is tough. And why would that be unusual when we live in a broken world?
Right. Exactly.
And you and I are still in process. Now, I hope that everybody who's a follower of Jesus is closer to Jesus today than they were 2 days ago, 3 days ago. But sometimes we have this spirit of rebellion in us. So when it really, and I'll tell you, when you ask what advice would I give to people who are at a dark time, the majority of people, when they're at a dark time, go into turtle mode. Literally, head in, feet goes in. And it's during those times that people need to be connected with God through the Spirit, through Jesus, and they need to be connected to other people who love them so much, who may tell them what they may not want to hear, but they need to know.
Yep, I love that.
And in that process, as they say in Canada, what will happen is we'll come out of that darkness seeing a light, realizing Jesus like we never have before. And I think of somebody right now that is very dear to me. She's on our staff. Her husband's struggling with cancer. Her mother just died. I don't know, a few months back. Her son-in-law passed away unexpectedly. And I could go on. It just doesn't end there. And yet, through it all, there's an honesty, a realness, a humbleness, a gratefulness that this individual carries. And it's dark.
Yeah.
This person has never given up on Jesus. So that's the way I answer that.
I love that. Okay, one last question. So if you could give one piece of advice to a thriver, about their church, about how they can, stay connected to their church, stay connected during this season, like what piece of advice would you give?
Did you tell me that your new series is entitled, what is it, Lean In?
Lean In, yes.
maybe you planted that seed. I would say to every thriver this, and you know what? I count it a privilege every time I come up and share with you guys. The drive up to your place is, I love it.
I love it.
I love the nature. I love the relationship. I would say to every thriver, will you lean in and ask God, what is it that you want me to become so that I can be everything I need to be with anybody that I come in contact anytime?
So good. Oh, that's so good. I love that. Thank you. Goodness. And I cannot wait till this is over, because we can't wait to have you drive up again and be with us. We just hope that our movie theater will be able to open sometime soon.
Well, what I'm going to pray for is that maybe because of this, something that you weren't aware of before in your town may open up as a result of this.
Yep.
And so there may be, I would say this to you and to your leadership. Where is it that you've been in the past that it was absolutely a closed door that now may be an open door? Because guess what, pal? Everything has changed.
That's right. That's right. I love it. That's huge. Well, one other thing, sometime when you come up, you're going to have to bring a bow or a gun or something and teach me. I think the last time I shot a gun, I was 13 years old, maybe 14. Last time I shot a bow, I'm probably the same age. So you'll have to come up, because there's hunting everywhere. I mean, this morning I saw like 12 deer. So you'll have to give me some pointers.
Well, I will, because just a week ago I shot a turkey, and I just want you to know that the majority of those deer that you see are probably females, and in the next week to 2 weeks, they're going to be dropping little ones.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, it's the birthing season in the deer herd, so you ain't seen. Now, I will give you a little hint. You're going to start seeing less of those deer, and you know why? Because those does are going to go away and have their fawns. They get highly protective, and then you're going to start seeing little spotty deer coming out with big mama deer.
It'll be a blast. Well, Terry, thank you so much for this. Just so appreciate it. Again, thank you for, I mean, goodness, what's 95, 25 years? That's 25 years. Like, we're a quarter century into this friendship, relationship, mentorship. I mean, you've been a spiritual father to me. You have been, someone who's just poured into me for years and years. And now you're someone who, like, our church loves. We just appreciate you so much. So I'm going to put a thank you in the mail. And I just so appreciate your time today, Terry. Just thank you so much.
Thank you, buddy. I love you. You know that. And I look forward to being up there soon.